where Southern California comes to talk. Talk Radio 790 KABC.
And you're listening to What's It Really Worth, the show that helps you find valuable collectibles in your home. I'm your host, Barry Stuppler, and we're live tonight at the KABC studios. And right now we're going to be talking to Garrett Burke. Learned about Garrett back in 2004 when Governor Gray Davis appointed me to the Statehood Quarter Commission, and I was to help select the final design for the California State Quarter. In 2005, when the U.S. Mint and Governor Schwarzenegger actually made the announcement and launched the quarter, I met Garrett at the actual launch, and I've been staying in touch with him since. I want to welcome you to What's It Really Worth.
Thank you, Barry.
And appreciate you being here tonight.
A pleasure.
Before we get to the questions I have, and I know many of our listeners may have, I want to say we need to give away one of your extraordinary books to the first KABC listener who can answer a question. And I made the question really simple because there's only 500 million of these out there, so all they have to do is find a California statehood quarter and they'll be able to find the answer to the question. And the question is, what is the person's image that's on the obverse of the California statehood quarter? And the first person to call will win an autographed book of Quarterama. It's a beautiful book. I saw this book. I was very impressed. The first time I saw it, I wanted to sit down with my grandchildren and help them learn about American history. It goes over each and every state, shows the various designs, gives you a history on the coin, and just gives you a tremendous amount of information. I think each one of these books should be in every library in the United States because that's a great tool to teach American history. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. And let me start with a very simple question for you. Why do you think people collect these 50 statehood quarters?
The basic reason is they're so accessible. We use them every day. A quarter is the workhorse coin of daily American life. And in 1999, when the 50-state quarter program began, people were really excited by the idea that each of the states would have some image representing a bit of state pride or history or a place or a person who made a difference for their state. And also, this was a very unique program because people were invited by many of the governors to submit ideas. People sat around the kitchen tables, families like our family did, just coming up with ideas of what their state quarter should be. So it captured the imagination in a very real way. And people collect because they're just little pieces of Americana that represent a slice of state pride.
Why do you think that Governor Schwarzenegger selected your design? Because I remember looking at, maybe 20 or 30 that were actually made the final cut, and Governor Schwarzenegger actually picked your design.
Right. Well, it started with Governor Gray Davis, and we were one of the finalists. There were over 8,300 entries total, and Governor Davis, he narrowed it down with several committees. I believe there were 3 committees. You would know better than I, Barry. But I believe there were 3 committees. They narrowed it down to 100, then 20, and then 6. Then we had a change of governors, and Governor Schwarzenegger also looked through, and I was told that he actually looked through not just the 6 finalists, but he went back maybe looking at a couple hundred different ideas. But I think because the idea, and I don't want to give away the trivia question here, but the coin honors the idea that each of us as a person has a relationship to nature, to enjoy nature, to respect it, to preserve it for future generations, and to be enriched by it. And that was a message that had deep resonance with both Governors Davis and Schwarzenegger, and that was the concept of the coin that our family had submitted.
Just to give your own information, we originally had, I think, somewhere around 300 different designs. We narrowed it down to the first 100. Then, like you said, we narrowed it down to 20, and then we actually submitted 6 of the finalists to the governor at the time. And like you're right, you're correct. So we have a couple of callers, and hopefully one of them will win one of your books. Got John in San Diego. John, okay, whose image is on the obverse of the California statehood quarter?
John Muir.
That is correct.
Very good.
John, did you know it, or did you actually pull a statehood quarter out of your pocket to look at it?
I just Googled it.
You Googled it. You took the easy way.
Yeah.
What gave you the idea for the Quarterama book?
My wife handed me a pamphlet that said, submit ideas for the California State Quarter, and I was working in Hollywood designing movie posters. So I just did this as an experiment, as a public service to myself, to come up with ideas and submit, because it was a very interesting project. How do you encapsulate the idea of California? We submitted actually the day of the deadline and had no expectation of selection, but when it was selected, we had so many invitations from schools, libraries, Rotary clubs to speak that we did. We went around California and did a lot of public speaking, I put a presentation together showing not only the designs of the California quarter, but the idea behind it. And so many teachers said, wow, this is a book. You should do a book. And it took many years for us to develop it. It really was an outgrowth, the book, Quarterama, from teachers and educators saying this is a great way, it's educational, it's entertaining, it's a great way to teach American history, state history, good values, not just monetary values, but really social values. The full title of the book is Quarterama, Ideas and Designs of America's State Quarters. The right side is the who, what, where, and when of the coin, where we have a very large, 6 times enlarged image of the coin, beautifully retouched. The left side, though, is the why. The why should I care? What is the idea behind the coin? And that's where we really have the fun. For instance, on the Delaware State Quarter, it's Cesar Rodney. And Cesar Rodney was the tie-breaking vote for the Declaration of Independence. Without his one voice at a critical time on July 2nd, 1776, the United States may not have happened. So the idea behind the Delaware State Quarter, for instance, is make your vote count. And each of the 50 coins has an idea behind it.
If you'd like to see what the book looks like, and I'm looking at a copy right now, it's extraordinary. Just go to www.quarterama.com, and there's actually a actual full description of the book right there, and you can even order it. It's just extraordinary. But tell us a little bit about the creative team behind Quarterama.
Well, I was very blessed that I have some phenomenally talented friends who I was able to twist their arms a little bit to help us make this book happen. But this was a family effort. My wife, Michelle, daughter, Katie, and I, we made this book happen with great friends, an illustrator, Mike Bryan, who's one of Hollywood's premier illustrators, medallic artist, Alex Shagan. He helped us so much in understanding the difference between art and design, and his input was really wonderful for the whole book. Lettering artist, Tom Nicosi. He's done 4 Super Bowl logos. He did the San Diego Padres logo. We have a phenomenal team of people who we put to work with us to make this book happen. And in a sense, I was the orchestra leader of this wonderful chamber orchestra, and I front-loaded with the best studio musicians possible.
The fun of statehood quarters or any series of coins is the ability to put together a really nice collection, something that you can be proud of. You can pass it on from one generation to the other. And the statehood quarters, I remember when I first heard about the program, I was coming down the elevator with the mint director, and at the time I was on the board of the American Numismatic Association, and we were coming down the elevator together, and I said, what do you think this is going to do? What do you think how many collectors do you think are going to actually get involved in collecting the statehood quarters? He said, we estimate somewhere around a couple 100 million people will get involved in collecting the statehood quarters out of their pocket. And I said, well, how many of those will be serious collector? And as he was coming off the elevator, he turned to me and he said, that's your job as with the American Numismatic Association to make those people into serious collectors. And I'll never forget that elevator ride. But talk to me a little bit about the best way that Americans can learn about the history of America from their pocket change.
If you look at the 50 state quarters, it's really a panorama of America, which is why we call the book Quarterama, the AMA, really signifying that it's a panorama that shows not only the history and the people and animals and places, but its monetary values and, more importantly, its social values. For instance, when you look at a North Carolina state quarter, it has the Wright brothers, the idea of first flight. You can learn about the perseverance of the Wright brothers, how they went from bicycle makers to the first airplane that had achieved human-powered flight. A state quarter is a launching point for getting much deeper into the past, into the history. A coin lasts virtually forever. It's a little piece of public art, and it's really a message to the citizenry. When the state quarter program happened, the selection committees within each of the states, it was a very feverish selection process. What was going to be representing us on our coin? And people take state pride very, very seriously. So the educational value of each of the 50 state quarters is really undeniable because at a very low cost, you, from pocket change, can build a collection. Let's not deny that these are pieces of money. This is American currency, and people build some very valuable collections from the state quarters, from pocket change, more specifically from buying through the U.S. Mint or coin shops, buying silver-proof sets, having them encapsulated. So there's a whole range of different ways you can learn about monetary values, social values, history, just through the little coins.
You've been listening to Garrett Burke. The website is quarterama.com. You were mentioning earlier that people can build collections around it. There's a lot of different quarters out there that have a value over and above the quarter. Which coins are really more value? We were talking about the Iowa one with the extra corn husk, I believe.
Yes, the Wisconsin.
The Wisconsin one, that's correct.
Yes, the Wisconsin is the most obvious one because it's a mysterious error which has never, to my satisfaction, been fully explained. But there's an extra leaf high and an extra leaf low, and each quarter could be worth many hundreds of dollars. The most valuable are the early issues of the 1999s, Delaware and Pennsylvania. But as with anything, condition matters. And if you have one that's even from pocket change that looks very shiny, very, very good condition, that's worth more than one that's got a lot of scratches on it. The U.S. Mint has put proof sets out. They're clad. There are silver versions. There's 3 different mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. So an informed collector, just by, I would say the best way is to join the American Numismatic Association, which you're the past president of. The American Numismatic Association is the educational outreach for our hobby. And they have wonderful seminars, the World's Fair of Money every year.
We have Steve from Rancho Palos Verdes. You had a question about statehood quarters?
Yeah, hi, this is for Garrett Burke. And by the way, Mr. Burke, I own your book and love it, by the way.
Thank you.
It's just great, the whole family. I bought 3 of them, and the new quarters from the national state parks, I just wanted to get your idea on the collectability of those versus the state quarters.
The U.S. Mint was very successful with the 50 state quarters program. Every coin that was taken out of circulation earned money called seigniorage, and the U.S. Mint earned, to pay down the national debt, over $6 billion. So not letting one success go to waste, they created another, which we hope to be a success, the America the Beautiful State Quarters, which it is a 2010 to 2021 program, 56 locations. The 50 states, D.C., and 5 territories are each now going to have a coin that represents a place, a locale, that has some significance to our national memory, some part of the American experience. So there is a whole new program, and the collectible value of that, if we've learned anything from the state quarters, start collecting early, because particularly the early issues have the most value, because people aren't as aware.
We have Lisa from Long Beach.
Gosh, it would be such a great tool for schools and students to learn about this. And I was just wondering if you guys have any plans on, in your book tours, targeting schools at all, because I think it would be such a great...
Yes, in fact, our book is just becoming available, and we are planning to speak at a lot of schools, library, Rotary clubs, not only in California, but all across America, also national parks, wherever we can get the message out. Being involved with the creation of the California State Quarter is not something we ever expected, and there were 2 ways that we could have handled it, because a lot of people ask, what do you think about seeing your ID on a coin? And honestly, I feel no sense of ownership to it. I feel it's an opportunity. It's a storytelling opportunity. In the case of California, it's to promote the idea of John Muir and one person making a positive difference for future generations. But if you look at all of the state quarters, each of them has an idea that has some kind of a benefit that we can take away from. For instance, Oklahoma. The scissortail flycatcher is on the coin. And when that was selected, I said, why that bird? I didn't understand the significance. And then when I found out that this is an amazing bird, it's acrobatic, it's super fast, it's just an aerodynamic little jet in the sky as a bird. I said, wow, this bird rocks. The idea of this coin is to exercise your genius, the way this little scissortail flycatcher is. So that's an example. Unfortunately, you wouldn't know unless you look into it, but the state quarters provides that opportunity.
Well, we only have a little bit of time left, but I know you self-published this book, and I know that must have been a hell of a challenge for you.
Yes. We felt this book was a child, and there would be no better parents for this child than us. And because I've worked on many big projects from Star Wars to James Bond to Harry Potter, so I knew we could do it ourselves because we had the right resources and we had the gumption to make it happen.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Garrett, for being on the show and sharing your information about the Statehood Quarter Program and Quarterama. Again, you can order it online, correct?
Yes, quarterama.com or amazon.com.
And you've been listening to Barry Stuppler and Garrett Burke on What's It Really Worth on KABC 790 Talk Radio. Thank you, and please join us next week.